1 D&D 2 Electric Boogaloo.
1d2 lightning damage?
No, Gator, I have to stay up the night again to read the new playtest that just came out. I'll once again assume that you guys have read the things I'll be talking about and have some understanding of the current rules. r/D&D memes, beware. Welcome to Pack Tactics, where I read the rules to you and sometimes even more. Today I'll be starting off by looking at the rules glossary. Later on, I'll be getting into the classes and feats. There is a lot of content this time around. Let's hope it's enough for a proper playtest this time. First and foremost, drumroll please. Auto failures and auto successes were reverted.
Yay!
We still have the concept of D20 tests, a combination of ability checks, saving throws, and attack rolls. I really like what they write about ability checks in this version. The DM can also call for an ability check that has a chance of meaningful failure when the outcome is uncertain and narratively interesting. The dice determine the results. They also explain a bit how skills work, which is mostly the same as before, and how ability checks usually require checks. Pretty normal stuff. They also show some information about typical DCs or difficulty classes, but I'm not a fan. To whom are these tasks very easy or nearly impossible? Some more guidance here would be very much appreciated. Maybe they could take some inspiration from 4E here, where almost any skill talks about DCs and gives examples. It doesn't necessarily have to be that much, but medium is just not very useful. Speaking of D20 tests, the help action has also been reworded a bit. I generally like the changes. It is not too different from what it used to be from the ability check parts. Namely, a character can only provide help if the task is one that he or she could attempt alone. Moreover, a character can help only when 2 or more individuals work together would actually be productive. Some tasks, such as threading a needle, are not easier with help. However, the assisting attack roll part is definitely a whole lot less ambiguous than it used to be with who gets the advantage. They also went ahead and changed how you get inspiration, or well, it is called heroic inspiration now. It's still easily abusable. I recommend you watch my other video if you want to know what the issues are with this and what I would like to see instead. That brings me to talking about attack rolls more. We got a wonderful addition to its rules, namely equipping weapons. You can equip or unequip one weapon before or after any attack you make as part of this action, even if the attack is with an unarmored strike. This may seem like a small change, but it helps out immensely when you want to play a character using different weapons. Juggling items is such a pain currently. I like this rule. That brings me to the changes to the light weapon property. This is basically 2-weapon fighting, but no longer limited to melee weapons. And it no longer requires your bonus action. Fantastic. And together with the equipping weapon rule, this is definitely not as painful as it could have been otherwise. Otherwise, the rules look pretty similar so far to what we have now. Maybe we'll get to see more in the future. Next up, spell stuff. First, we go into ritual casting. If you have a spell prepared that has the ritual tag, you can cast that spell as a ritual. A special feature is no longer required for ritual casting. All the other rules on rituals in the old player's handbook still apply. While this is a buff to casters, it is a nice quality of life feature, so I'll take it even if I'd prefer them not buffing casters too much.
Kobold, this is boring! Talk about creature types!
Thanks for the segue, Gator. I needed that. But they're also pretty boring. I would prefer if we had some general rules for creature types, but it seems we aren't getting those anytime soon. I guess we could somehow link creature types to spell lists, well, anyways, I'll talk about those next. They were already introduced in the last playtest. They were explained as different categories that different classes could pick spells from. We have arcane, primal, and divine spells, and each caster gets access to one of them. The lists do include the same spells sometimes, but there are differences. In theory, this didn't sound too bad, but I was wrong. They made it so complicated for what seems to be for no good reason. I'll spoil a bit of information about classes, which I'll talk about in the future. You don't get the whole spell list, only part of it, based on spell schools, determined by your class. I'm sorry, but what the heck? That is a way more complicated procedure than just being able to look at your spell list. You need to find which of arcane, primal, divine your class uses. And then you need to find out what schools you are allowed to pick from. And then you need to figure out which spells are actually available to you. Why? I don't get it. Speaking of not getting it, like my title says, hiding rules are still bonkers. I'll just go read them and point out some issues I can find. Hide action. With the hide action, you try to conceal yourself. To do so, you must make a DC 15 dexterity check stealth. While you're heavily obscured or behind 3/4 cover or total cover, you must be out of any visible enemy's line of sight. If you can see a creature, you can discern whether it can see you. On a successful check, you are hidden. Make note of your check's total, which becomes the DC for a creature to find you with a wisdom check perception. So you need to be heavily obscured or behind 3/4 cover or total cover. But relative to whom? You also must be out of any visible enemy's line of sight. So you can hide if the enemies are invisible. Why does it state visible? And then there's the weird implementation. I'm happy that it's actually a check versus a DC, but they did it in such a strange way. What happens if you don't roll a 15? Do you just try again? I know it's technically already possible in 5e, but I had hopes that the playtest would fix it. Next is the hidden condition. While you are hidden, you experience the following effects. Concealed. You aren't affected by any effect that requires its target to be seen. Surprise! If you are hidden when you roll initiative, you have advantage on the roll. Attacks affected. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and your attack rolls have advantage. Ending the condition. The condition ends on you immediately after the following occurrences. You make a sound louder than a whisper. An enemy finds you. You make an attack roll. You cast a spell with a verbal component, or you aren't heavily obscured or behind any cover. Now, what happens if you are hidden to some enemies but not hidden to others? Do you still roll initiative with advantage? It seems so, but it looks like there's text missing here. Also, ending the condition doesn't seem to allow for rogues to peek around corners and shoot enemies with advantage. And finally, there's a whole mess with this invisibility in regards to blind sight and tremor sense. It is pretty obvious that the intent is that concealed, you aren't affected by any effect that requires its targets to be seen from hidden. And unseeable, you can't be seen, so you aren't affected by any effect that requires its targets to be seen from invisible, and countered by blind sight and tremor sense. But as written, the ability to see hidden invisible creatures does not remove these benefits from those conditions. It would need to say something like they are effectively not hidden / invisible to you. I know I'm being pedantic about this, but we have similar issues in 5e currently with see invisibility and invisibility, and I want to see them do it right this time. You get it? See them? Oof. Couple rules left. It's 3 in the morning. The dash and move rules seem to have been cleaned up a lot, which I appreciate. It is kind of a mess currently. However, it's a bit disappointing that it seems that you can no longer swap speeds during a move. Take, for example, the situation where you want to climb up a mountain, but you are 5 feet away from being able to do so. This would require you to walk 5 feet and then move again using a dash to actually normally start climbing, but you cannot use your remaining movement for walking. That reminds me of jumping now requiring a whole action. That is just mega sad. I do like the details study, search, and influence give though. That is good stuff and something we were mostly missing in 5e. Last but not least, something I want to do right now. Long rests. I love the changes here. Getting all the hit dice back is something I recommended last time. And I appreciate that it's a thing now. It seems that they've changed things so that you don't have to track many things over multiple days, which is good. I do wonder what is happening to something like Feeble Mind, which normally lowers a score for a month. The wording for rest casting has remained unchanged since the last UA. You guys might want to ask for more changes there regarding the wording. It's up to you. End of video. One more thing though. Please don't make your unseen servants put ice cubes in spaces your enemies want to occupy. It's unethical. Anyways, it's bedtime now. Good night.
Good night.